recording sign come on. There we are, live on YouTube.
Okay,
Terrific. Thank you so much, Tim.
thank you.
All right. Well, we'll call our meeting to order of the Cook County Passion Pit, and I'm going to put that in quotes, Old Shore Beach Area Committee. And the first thing we'd like to do is adopt the agenda. So are there any changes or additions to the agenda, or do I have a motion to approve that agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Myron moved to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stacy. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item is our minutes, which were graciously sent out by Tim. And any additions or corrections to our minutes? Hearing or seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm not sure if I can make the motion to approve a previous meeting's minutes that I wasn't at, but so maybe somebody else should.
Kelly, would you like to move to approve the minutes?
Certainly.
So moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stacy. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Tyson?
I'm there. Aye.
Thank you. Are there any nays? Any in opposition? Motion carries. All right, we're moving along. So we've adopted our agenda and minutes, and now we would like to give Tim an opportunity to introduce himself since we were unable to connect with you last time. And we want to thank you so much for being here, Tim.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this committee. I had the opportunity to watch it on YouTube and was impressed with the discussion and expertise of people on this committee. I live actually in Wisconsin, right across from the Twin Cities, but our presence, as Kelly mentioned, my dad and mom used to stay in the campground, and they had the opportunity to buy a parcel of land which is directly north of the Old Shore Road property, and built a cabin in 1990. And we have some great memories of that when they lived up there. In fact, I was looking through a book. It was kind of like a sign-in booklet, and they hosted a gathering. And every year, I think that for a number of years, they would have a 4th of July Mass at the church. And in 1995, they celebrated the 100th anniversary, and it was great to look through there and see pictures of George Morrison, who had come over to my parents' cabin next door, and the number of people. So that I'm aware of the history of the church, and living next to it, appreciate that history. So I also appreciate the history of that whole area, especially more since I got a chance to read Stacy's book last time I was up at the cabin. Just a great piece of work, literary work, talking about the history. I just wanted to share that, we probably aren't on the beach, but we see somewhat goes on the beach. And although we don't live up there, I have the family is now myself and 3 siblings, or actually 3 sisters and 3 brothers who go up there and use it quite regularly. And, we have I asked my siblings what kind of stories they had to share with regards to, maybe bad things that they experience or good things. And really in our history, and we're not living on the beach, so we're not really reflective of those people that are living on the beaches. Maybe there's been 1 or 2 times where we might have called the sheriff for noise or a 4-wheeler on the beach, but that was probably a long time ago. And again, I can't speak for, because we aren't on the beach, but I also wanted to share a couple stories of people that I met on the beach. It was a group of high school graduates that had come back many years after, and we're just meeting on the beach to renew old stories and renew relationships. last year I happened to run into a gentleman who was working at the apple orchard at Bausch Construction, and he was just going down there to have a glass of wine. So, those are probably our experiences, which maybe don't reflect some of the neighbors who are right on the beach, but our personal experiences have been fairly positive of what's going on down there. So just wanted to share that so people kind of understand where I'm at with regards to our reflections on the beach area.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to have you participate with our committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, I just want to recognize that we saw that you came on the call. So thank you for being here. So now we're going to go to the public comment period. And I want to ask, first of all, Tim, did you receive any emails regarding public comment? Anything that we should read?
Madam Chair, I'm looking through my emails now. I've been on the road today, and so I really wasn't getting too many emails. So I'm going to look through them real quick to make sure if I've gotten one or not here.
Okay, and I know that on WTIP, we had an interview. I think it aired on 3 occasions. We talked about the public comment, but certainly with the draft of the media release that we have presented to you earlier this afternoon, that will be going out. We'll discuss that a bit later, and we'll inform the public of this opportunity. But is there anyone from the public that did want to speak this evening? Anybody perhaps that I'm not seeing on my screen? Okay, we will get on to our short-term work, and we have some updates. One of the things I wanted to do, and this ties in a little bit, Tim, with the remarks you made regarding just concerns and issues down at the shore. What kinds of calls have they received at the law enforcement center? And so I got some data from Sheriff Eliason, and this is data from January 2019 to now, so 28 months. And there were a total of 8 calls that came in regarding issues down on the shore. And so I just did want to let you know that I did follow up, and that was the number that had been gathered. The different categories for those calls, there was 1 assault call, 2 that were disturbance calls, 2 that were public assist calls, 1 suspicious activity, 1 threat call, and 1 trespass call. So I did want to let you know that I had gotten that data. I indicated I would do that in the interim and update all of you. In addition to our WTIP piece, which ran 3 times, and I believe you can click on the website and listen to it. We have that data, and then the letter was mailed out on May 3rd, which everybody had an opportunity to put some input on. And I think we jointly came up with a really great letter, and I want to thank everyone for their input and their ideas. Dave?
And I don't think they record all of the trespassing calls. You said that's from 2019 to date?
Yes, January 2019 to now.
Yeah, that's missing about 20 calls. So just FYI, it's not
Okay.
complete. Apparently they don't record all of them when they issue a warning.
Okay. Thank you. So getting back to the letter that was mailed May 3rd, Tim, have you received any electronic responses or paper responses at this point from that letter that was sent out to residents on Old Shore Road?
Yeah, I have had requests to send a personal link to get to the digital form of the survey. And then there's 3 people that completed the survey. Really doesn't give a broad picture quite yet, but we've had 3 people participate.
Well, that's good. We know the letters went out and that they've been received, so that's excellent. Then we'll have something in the Cook County News Herald this coming weekend. And then I'd like to draw your attention to the press release. We have a draft that was sent to you in email by Tim Nelson this afternoon. And I just wanted to get reactions, responses, and if you felt anything should be added or deleted from that particular media release draft. Looks like people are looking at it right now. And I can read this for any individuals that are going to perhaps, oh, there it is. I don't have to read it. You've got it right there on your screen share. And thank you for putting Passion Pit in quotes. I appreciate that. So anything you'd like to add or do differently, Dave?
Again, this, if I were reading this and I didn't have any history with the property, I would assume from reading this that you guys already bought it and you're operating it as a park. And neither of those is true yet. So how do you word that?
So maybe a little introductory paragraph saying where we're at with the county property and MnDOT property.
Yeah, because at some point, in the event that it's the county that proceeds with the purchase, you're going to be asking the county for funding. And the tribe would have to do the same thing. They'd have to ask their members in the event that they're unsuccessful in asking that the property be ceded to them. But in either case, I mean, if I just got this cold and read it, it says to me, we're starting a park. What would you like to see in it? Well, it's a little bit of cart before the horse. I mean, I understand you're trying to improve the situation for people that have raised complaints along the shore here. I understand that. I appreciate that. It's a fine line to walk, though, to turn it into a park when you're not authorized to operate it as a park yet.
Okay.
Really,
So-
the only property you can operate a park on is the 37-foot stretch.
Okay.
Uh,
Stacy, you have a
suggestion?
question. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree. It needs just a bit of an introductory paragraph. And I think after that, rather than starting with trash cans or porta potties, there could be a sentence that asks people if they have a history using the beach, how they, are you interested in, I mean, I think it would be of value to the committee to not only know about this piece, but also how people have used it and are used to visiting it.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, what we can even do is kind of use a reference from that first paragraph of the letter that we had sent out to the Old Shore Road folks.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing. That would really help to clarify. Any other comments or suggestions? Myron?
Yeah, and I think there was, it was alluded to, but I think for this purpose of this news release, we're speaking about the county-owned property right now. And Dave, like Dave said, the third, that's our immediate concern. I think we have to deal with that, and then we'll get in the long term. But Dave, you make a good point, but I think we do need to do something currently with the county-owned property. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the future at all. We're talking about what is now.
Correct. Excellent. Let's take a minute to look further, see if there's anything else we'd like to change, add. Dave.
And about the Passion Pit Committee, my understanding of this committee's role is to make a purchase or not purchase recommendation along with in the short term, some management things, which is what this is all about. But the Passion Pit Committee itself is tasked with informing the Board of Commissioners as to whether they should attempt to proceed with a purchase or not, as I understand it.
Correct.
It doesn't say anything about that in the Passion Pit Committee paragraph.
All right, so we will add a piece in there about advisory to the board. Other things, other changes, additions.
I'm wondering if we don't put in a lead of what options people have. And by that, I mean the sentence that says that could include waste receptacles, porta potties, pet waste bag. It kind of feels like we've already identified things. If we're asking people what they have for ideas for short term, maybe we should leave a blank slate and see what others come up with. They may, identify those same things as we have, but it might lead to a bigger discussion or a much smaller discussion of keeping it very simple and not giving them our ideas, but waiting to hear what theirs are.
It's a good suggestion. How do others feel about that?
I agree with Kelly. Thanks, Kelly.
Tyson, your hand is up.
I also agree. We're still in the early stages of this committee. I think it would be good to get general input from the public at large.
All right.
I would agree too. We don't want to lead them. They should be able to come up with those suggestions themselves, I think.
All right, well, we will take all of those suggestions and recommendations and revise this, get it out to everyone, both those that are in attendance this evening and those that are not with us, and try to get it out soon. One of the things I thought about is that date of May 21st, which we have for the other survey, and making certain that we get input based on this media release by that same date, either electronically or in writing. How do people feel about that?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, so we'll put a May 21 on there as well. Great. Any other suggestions before we move on in our agenda? All right, well, we'll get that put together and get it out for a final look and proof by everyone. And then hopefully we can get that released shortly on the county website, WTIP, Boreal Community Media, and also in the News Herald. Any other suggestions of places to put it? Hearing none, all right, we will move on in our agenda. Okay, so one of the things that we all thought about towards the end of our meeting last time is that we really had some common themes. We talked a little bit about land acknowledgement, education, the enjoyment and the respect that is needed for this property. And I wanted to provide a little update just about the area of land acknowledgement. The Joint Powers or Community Leadership Group is looking at a land acknowledgement statement. They're in the process of working on a draft. And they actually have on June 2nd at 6 p.m. A gentleman, Tad Johnson, he's a professor at UMD. He's worked with land acknowledgements for the Twin Cities campus and also the Duluth campus. He's a professor in Native American Studies, and he's going to talk to the group about land acknowledgement, about the fact that it's more than words, it's about the actions and the intent following those words. So that particular session is going to be recorded. And again, it's June 2nd at 6 p.m. It'll be recorded on the, I believe, Cook County Higher Ed website. And that will be available to everyone to look at afterwards, should you wish to do that. But I did want to point out that they're still working on the land acknowledgement, taking it very seriously. Another bit of homework I did is research the concept of naming. And I spoke to Martina Wigwas, who is the Ojibwe teacher at ISD 166. And we haven't had a follow-up discussion. This was very brief, but she indicated that there's a real process in the culture of naming. And so she is going to share some information with me that I'll bring back to all of you about that. But in the meantime, we did have a number of suggestions. And I want to go through these because some of them were sent individually to Tim Nelson or to myself. Some were sent to the entire group. So I want to make sure everybody has the list, if you will, that we have right now. So we had Old Shore Road Beach, Old Shore Beach area, Old Shore Beach, Chippewa City Historic Lakeshore. And Tim, were there any others that you might have received beyond those?
No, Madam Chair, that's all I got.
All right. So maybe we can, at this point, talk a little bit about those names. Tyson, you have your hand up.
I didn't email it in, but I have one more suggest, which would be Morrison's Beach.
Morrison's Beach. Thank you.
Yeah, Myron here, I had George Morrison Beach. I didn't submit it. But,
George Morrison Beach. All right. So we have several names there, and you know, we're not going to be making a decision this evening, but certainly we want to talk about what are the reasons for these names. What do we see as the benefits, or are there any red flags that we see in these? So let's start with the first one that we received, which is Old Shore Road Beach. So anybody want to support that, or poke a finger at it, or what are your thoughts? Kelly?
Well, I'm kind of wondering if we wait until it's actually decided that we are going to rename it, or that there would be a renaming, and then to gather a lot more. I don't know that I'm comfortable. I mean, I guess we can, but I would like to have a full listing of what comes down, and we don't even have a full group here tonight to talk about it.
Right.
So I think just being made aware that these are some of the names coming in, but leaving it at that, and maybe collectively, you know, waiting until we determine that we are seriously doing that, making that change for the county piece of land, and then having a full committee in whatever type of I don't know that they want to have a contest or how people submit, but I would like to wait until we have more of a firm decision before even really spending time on this.
Oh, I would agree. Stacy?
Thanks. I concur with Kelly. And just a bit about naming things. When a baby is born in the Ojibwe way, a name isn't given until after the baby first smiles. And so I think we should, in the interest of, I guess, offering up plenty of time and a lot of participation, maybe table it. And I think certainly it would be good to have John Moran's input. He He's on the committee. And I think it's okay to just keep soliciting potential names and then discuss it later.
Thank you. Tim, did you have your hand up?
No, I did not.
Okay.
With two Tims on here, I'm not sure who we would be. I would agree with Stacy. I think, I guess the question is, can we live with Passion Pit in the short term, or should we even rename that? Given the fact that at some point, we may look at the historical perspective of that area and the name would reflect more of that. So, Passion Pit, I guess, is what it's been known for. So I guess if the committee is comfortable with just leaving it Passion Pit, I certainly would be there also.
And I guess I'm comfortable with that as long as it's in quotes. I just don't feel that is respectful. Certainly, we understand where that name came from. And my hope is that at some point, and it may be this group, it may not be this group, but at least we'll be able to refer to this place, special place, in a very respectful manner. But thank you for that. Good point.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Tim.
Yeah. And I agree. I agree with everyone. And it was difficult for me, in going ahead and typing up the agenda and the minutes and all the referencing to the Passion Pit that we have. And I want to make, it really struck me as the meaning or origin of that name and everything, and I want to start that shift to bringing it towards something more respectable. So I and that's why we talked about it and putting it in parentheses or the quotation marks. And then if you look at the agenda, it says the Passion Pit / Old Shore Beach Area Committee, kind of like a transitional name into something else, at least for a reference sake. But I did want to get the kind of feel myself too from the committee as to how they felt using that term. And I guess if we just kept using it, the Passion Pit, with the quotation marks, I guess that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we had that we were all acceptable in terms of using that in all of the minutes and the agendas and everything like that going forward.
Very good point. How do members of the committee feel if we continue to leave it just in quotation marks? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I don't like it, but I can live with it. I think it's not a worthy name for the historical significance of that area.
I agree with you.
Doesn't sit well with me at all. And I'm certainly liberal in my sexual views. That's not it. But
I think as we're trying to gather public information and with people being familiar with that name, when you reference the Chippewa City Church, people also know where that is and understand that. But when you're trying to connect with people and trying to get their input, I think making it simple for them. So if it stays in quotations, I think that's okay. I think it might draw more people in by not transitioning it to something that it hasn't been for a long time, and being able to connect with people and get as much input as we can. Because if all of a sudden we've changed, and I don't know that we have the right to change the name, but if the name has suddenly changed, then people are going to go back and have questions about what is it that you're talking about, and you're spending more time trying to educate them quickly than them being able to think things through and give us their opinions. So I'd really like to leave a clean slate for people to come to us and offer up their feelings on it.
I appreciate those remarks. That makes a lot of sense, Kelly. A lot of sense. Other comments? So we're okay? Passion Pit in quotes. All right, sounds good. All right. Another thing that we had hoped to do as we look at the short-term management of the county parcel is to talk about the property lines and where things begin and end. At the end of our conversation, during our organizational meeting, we did talk about the fact that some of those flags that had been put out there may have been moved by young people at some point, that we didn't have any kind of an official survey. And so I know that Tim Nelson was going to try to connect with some people to see what we could do in that area. And Tim, do you have anything to report to the group this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I was able to speak with Dwayne Hill, the MnDOT engineer, and he said that they already do have a crew in Grand Marais area for the work that they're doing. And so that he was going to check to kind of task them to at least identify their lines. And then I have spoken with a local surveyor who is willing to go and verify then the county's lines of that access strip to so that we can get a good set of lines both for the MnDOT parcel and for the county parcel. And so I'm just waiting to hear back from Mr. Hill as to when that's going to be accomplished, and then I'll send our surveyor out there to go ahead and take care of our.
All right. And did you have any idea of how soon that might be, or was it kind of up in the air? I know you said they have surveyors up here.
Yeah, it's a matter of just retasking them from what they're doing and when they would be able to get into there and do it. It certainly would be earlier in the summer. I don't know if it will be like next week or something like that, but within the next matter of weeks. And then as soon as the MnDOT gets theirs established, then the survey I talked to, he said he'd be able to get out there right away and do ours. So just within a matter of a few weeks.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Any other comments about property lines or surveying? I think that'll be really helpful just to see how much that parking lot has encroached. I just think there are some issues there, and it'll be important to address those, and getting a fresh survey will be good. Dave.
Madam Chairwoman, I recommend that you ask them to mark the drainage lines through the property as well. The Minnesota Department of Transportation uses that property as a drainage basin, and they've routed a couple of culverts through it. And so just standing looking at it from the beach, you'd have no idea that that's what's gone on. They had a hydro team out last year looking at the culvert underneath Old Shore Road because it's undersized compared to the culvert that comes under 61. And they wanded the entire drainage basin, but they stopped at Old Shore Road. So if they mark the corners, I recommend you have them mark the edges of the drainage basin also, because it'll give you a better feel for just how much buildable area exists on that parcel.
All right, so we'll mark the edges of the drainage area. Thank you. Anything else? Let's see. So let's talk a little bit about our long-term work. One of the things that I know last meeting at our organizational meeting that Tribal Chair Deshaw shared with us is that as we talk about history and we try to learn more as we're in the process of making decisions, that we know more about history of the area. And so I had an opportunity to look back at a letter that Stacy wrote about the potential use of Old Shore Beach property some time ago, and asked her permission to be able to read that this evening to really share with us what she shared earlier with the commissioners. This is from July 27th of last year, when there were many concerns brought forward to the county board and to also Parks and Trails. As the county and city leaders consider how best to handle continued public access to the Old Shore Beach, I want to share some of the history of that land, as well as my thoughts on a long-term solution that would be of great benefit to the public, as well as visitors to the area. The history of Old Shore Road is connected to the original inhabitants of that area, families of Anishinaabe people, including my ancestors and the Anaquat family. It was Antoine Anaquat who originally owned the Chippewa City plat. As soon as mainstream mechanisms for land ownership were applied to the North Shore. The lots along the beach were once owned by Anaquat, Lesage, Morrison, and others. And if you wish to learn more, you can find it in Walking the Old Road, A People's History of Chippewa City and the Grand Marais Anishinaabe. It will explain the complex history of the land, as well as the history of the Chippewa Church, which is just a short walk from the beach. When the beach property was turned over to the state in 1939, you'll see that Ogama Realty, a company run by Charles and Van Johnson family, were the current title holders. And after being mined as a gravel pit, the land sat undeveloped for many years. It continued to be used by local people as a quiet place to enjoy Lake Superior. Its reputation as Passion Pit precedes any homes or private land ownership there, and so the fact that beach access has become contentious is a matter of historic use. I believe there's a way for the county and city to preserve public access to the beach, protect the area from further development, and honor the original people who live there. Working with a small group, including Myron Bersheim, J. Aerosmith DeCoux, Carrie Johnson, who is the former director at the Cook County Historical Society, and Rena Rogers, we've discussed the possibility of creating a monument to honor the Chippewa City Grand Portage artist George Morrison on the piece of MnDOT land currently being considered for lease by the county. Please note that the work of a separate committee would be needed for visioning such a long-term project, but for the short term, Parks and Trails, along with county, city, and tribal leaders, have the opportunity to secure and care for the land, with the intention of someday bringing the Indigenous history and legacy of the arts together in a way that also upholds public access to the Old Shore Beach. By taking this approach, we can help to deepen the connection between the beach and Chippewa Church, honor the Indigenous history of the land, maintain public access to the beach, protect the area from hotel or industrial development, and finally highlight the legacy of George Morrison and the rich tradition of arts in this community. Miigwech for your time and consideration. I look forward to talking with you more in person about this as the process takes shape. And here we are. But I think that's a really thoughtful letter. Thank you, Stacy, for allowing us to share it now, months from when you wrote that. But certainly it brings forward many of the thoughts we've had and ideas we've shared. It certainly fits with some of the suggestions for names. And I think it's just really important to see that idea is there, which helps us to pull together and merge many of our thoughts and ideas. So I want to thank you for that. Any other comments or reactions to the letter? For some of you, you may have heard that before. For the others of you, it may be brand new. Anything else? Okay, we'll move forward. But I think that that's a nice piece of history for us to have and an interesting way for us to look. Stacy.
Yeah, I can just add a few things, and thanks for reading that. It's as it says in the letter, a lot of the history is in the book and in the research in Walking the Old Road, but pretty much any land title is going to give you the specific history of all of these pieces. What happened before the Philissons, who Antoine Philison or Anaquat was my great grandma's uncle, and he was a half brother to her father. And so that original plat was divided up amongst Chippewa City community members back in 1862, 1863. The important thing to remember is that that piece of land is just one small part of the greater land cessation that took place as part of the Treaty of 1854. One of the points that I try to bring home in Walking the Old Road is that before the European settlers arrived and before modern take on property ownership was instilled, the people lived seasonally all across northeastern Minnesota, and leaders like Espanol and others moved, many miles away seasonally for the fall and winter. And the Chippewa City beach was like a summer fishing camp, fishing grounds. And I think anyone who's been to the beach or spent any time there can see why they would have chosen that as the place to put in their boats and canoes and go fishing. And so I just wanted to bring in that broader lens when we're talking about.
Stacy, you're on mute.
Oh, I don't know how that happened. When we're talking about, I guess, historic use of the beach, we can talk about that more ancient history, but also the local history of even Great Expectations and Sawtooth Elementary School classes going down there, for picnic lunches and things. So there's a real recent historic use and then a much broader, more ancient historic use. And that's just one of the reasons why the beach is really important to a lot of people.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Since John Moran isn't with us this evening, perhaps we want to come back to some more history at our next meeting on May 21st. But maybe right now we want to talk a little bit about public versus private ownership and kind of our thoughts and feelings about that. As I think about this piece on a personal level, I think about public use, and I go back to comments that Stacy just made, how it's been a place where people have gathered for many, many years and have enjoyed and used that parcel. I also think that that parcel that the county currently owns is a great opportunity to educate not only people here in Cook County, but people who come to Cook County about the relationship between the Anishinaabe and the way the land is used today and how that occurred. And beyond that, about what is value. I thought about this question: what does value mean? The land in Lake Superior is priceless. It's hard to put a price tag on it, and yet we know it has a tax value. But how are others feeling about the value of the land and whether it should be public or private? Kelly?
I guess I'll shoot from the hip on this because it's really kind of that kind of a question.
Mhm.
I don't think, yeah, there's a taxable value and there's a real estate value that you can put to it. I think for people who have grown up here, who have maybe visited here many times, who use that area a lot, I think it has a lot of public value. It typically, not always, but it is a peaceful place. One of my favorite things to do is go out there and look at all the different kinds of varying rocks that are there and pick some different rocks and enjoy. I mean, you can get in the water. Sorry, that's me. You can put your feet in the water there. Stacy and I swam there when we were teenagers. It was the one place you could lay on the beach and then go jump in and be relatively safe and get back out. It's the East Harbor, which everybody knows that depending upon which way the wind blows around here, has a significance as far as watching the wave action and what Lake Superior does. I don't think you can respect the lake until you actually spend time watching the lake or you're on the lake. I see how people use it in the summer when they're here, and I always know someone who's not familiar with it. Putting kids on paddle boards if they don't have life jackets, or sending 2 12-year-olds out in a kayak when you have boats, when you have canoes, when you have all kinds of activity, tells me people don't understand and respect what that lake does. So I think that keeping it public, maybe there's changes that have to be made, but sharing information about the area, letting people enjoy that quiet, pristine beach, for the most part that it is something that really is special, and it's a hidden gem. And I think up until the last few years when our numbers have really climbed, and this year again, I know we're expecting another banner year in tourism. It's a double-edged sword. That's how a lot of people make their living here. We want the visitors to come, but we also want them to have good behavior. So I think we have some opportunities here to lead how we would like to see that used. And eventually we have to make the decision whether we want to ask the county to, try to purchase from the state or lease. And that's where we have to go from this. And I'm hoping that that's the direction we take, because truthfully, I'm hoping that it remains public for people to use and enjoy, with respect. So.
Thank you. That was very nicely said. Thank you. Others? Myron?
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate what I've said in the beginning. It really has some historic significance. And I think if it went private, it would lose that possibility. I think it's in it right now. It's got more dynamics involved with Grand Portage's interest in it as well. But we know we have this piece of property as a county right now, and so I'm just focusing on that. But it has historic value, and I would think that the MnDOT property would add to that historical significance. So I'm not looking at it so much as private taxes or buying it or anything like that. I'm looking at the perspective of what it is to the people. And like Kelly said, it means a lot to a lot of people that grew up here, visited here. They've got their own experiences with it. And we'd lose that if it went private. Yeah, I think it's just too much of our culture, and hopefully be more of our historic culture as well. And I think I speak for the Historical Society on that, at least. I think we have the majority of people that think that we have a real interest in this as a historical society, and therefore it has to be public.
And I certainly see the opportunity with the Historical Society to connect the church
Sure.
to the beach, to the land, to better tell the story and the history. Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a point of clarification. The church property does not physically connect to this property.
Right.
Okay. My biggest concern about public ownership is the public is far more than the locals who've enjoyed the beach for the last 50 years. And you don't have to look any farther than the front page of the North Shore Journal to understand the wrestling match going on down in Silver Bay on Black Beach. And so if you're advocating for making this public and you're advocating for using it as a tourist attraction, which you'd have to do, you're inviting a lot of people. What makes it a special place for you to go to, and Stacy said this in her letter, it's a quiet place. It won't be a quiet place. And it won't be a place that you'll enjoy going when there are 200 people on it. And it really isn't that big a beach. It doesn't have parking to support that. And you'll end up, I think, it might be a good idea, Tim and Ann, to reach out to the guys down in Two Harbors and find out how they're addressing this, because they were completely overrun as soon as they went public with the Black Beach signs. As soon as they made the general public aware that this was a publicly maintained facility and that it was an attractive beach. I don't think it's as nice a beach as the beach out here. I think this beach that I'm staring at right now is the nicest beach on the North Shore. And you have to realize that everybody's going to wake up to that immediately. Okay, and it will be full of tourists. It won't be the quiet place that you've enjoyed all these years. And I don't know any way to stop that. You can't put a toll booth. You can't put a locals only sign on it. There isn't any feasible way to restrict the number of people that will visit it. And there isn't anything to keep them from parking on 61 and walking down, parking on Old Shore Road and walking down. It's a challenge. Public ownership is a challenge on this parcel. I think it is a gem. And I disagree with the statement that if it was in private ownership, that the historical significance would be lost. That option hasn't been pursued. And until you know who owns it, you don't know what options are available and what some future owner might consider as a historical monument or a walking path or a connection to the church. So to assume that if it isn't purchased by the county, it's lost its historical significance, I don't see it that way. And I want to go on record as having said that.
I would like to just clarify, I didn't say purchased by the county. I said remaining public.
Sure. And
I'm only speaking of the land that we have right now.
Sure. So when we talk about the cart path easement, which isn't widely known among the members of the committee, you can come to an understanding of the significance of the old road and the ability to navigate from somewhere on the church property down to the old road and walk the old road and walk the county parcel. It's not a very big beach. It certainly is not much of a tourist beach, but it certainly leaves an option open for signage and recognition of historical significance without turning it into the fiasco that Black Beach has become. And so I'd like that to be on the table for consideration. I think you can do historical recognition of Chippewa City and prior landowners that were there before. It was actually 1880, Stacy, that Anaquad received the property and began to parcel it out. I think that there are blended options without turning it into the equivalent of what they're going through right now down on Black Beach. That would, I think, also preserve some of its quaintness. And I know Tim is concerned about losing their access to the beach. If you pull up the tax parcel finder and you look at the paths on the property, for example, a very nice path straight down to the beach. And I mean, their worry is what any property owners would be. They've enjoyed beach access all these years. If it were to fall into private hands, would they lose that? I don't know, Tim. I mean, there are deeded access options. There's simply being neighborly options. I don't think it has to be open to the general public to satisfy Witzman specific concerns. And I don't think it has to be open to the general public across the whole MnDOT parcel to address the historical significance of Chippewa City either. Thank you.
Thank you. Tyson, you've had your hand up.
Thank you. I am firmly of the opinion that the argument that making this beach public would increase tourism to a uncomfortable level is something of a false dilemma. I don't think we see that at any of our other beaches in the county. Just anecdotally, I'm not familiar with another beach that's been overrun. Black Beach down in Silver Bay is kind of a special case. I would find myself firmly in the camp of a public ownership scenario being the only way to resolve this. And part of that is because of the recent change in Cook County over what is considered access on a beach. For those of you who don't know, for years and years and years, the opinion from the county attorney's office, from guys like Bill Hennessy and before, was that if you got to the lake legally, you could walk the beach on other people's property below the high water mark. So there's kind of a flexible term. We call it the proprietary and sovereign rights of the state of Minnesota between basically where the grass starts and where the water starts. Property owners own the underlying title, but their ownership is subject to the right of the state. The change from our county attorney's office, and I think from the state DNR, is that in the old days, the public's right to use the beach was confirmed, but now there's a switch that unless there's a public right like navigation or putting up a lighthouse or something that's funded by the government, public doesn't have the right to walk on the beach. Basically, you can walk along the beach if you keep your feet wet, is the way the DNR, I think, would put it to you these days. Personally, I disagree with that. I think that's a misreading of the case law in the state, but reasonable legal minds can differ there. Here's why that matters. If you restrict ownership to just the little county parcel that's 30 some feet wide, and you don't seek to acquire the property owned by the state, you are effectively creating a 37-foot wide beach for the public to enjoy. If this new rule from the state is going to stay in effect, then the only way for anyone to really enjoy that beach is for the county to acquire the state land.
Thank you. Dave.
So Tyson lays the argument bare. This is really about the beach. And so we're all trying to protect a piece of our childhood and access to the nicest beach in the North Shore, and couching it as a historical argument. Yes, you'd have 37 feet of beach, Tyson. So what is this committee about? Is it about historical significance, or is it about a locals beach park? Because you won't have a locals beach park. And if you looked at the traffic on Harbor Park last summer, it'd be hard to claim that it wasn't overrun. So I mean, the businesses along there certainly enjoyed the traffic, but Kelly didn't want to go to Harbor Park last summer because there were too many people there. No locals did. And that's what I'm suggesting will happen here. You can't put a locals only sign on Old Shore Road. It just won't happen. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, for some reason, my little thing doesn't have a raise your hand little button, so I can't, I just have to yell when I get a chance. And I think the issue is complex. Yes, there's a beach component to it, but there is the historic. You can't deny the historic significance of it as well. And of course, there are varying interests. Yes, some people and property owners would like access down to the water. And there are some property owners who would like to close the entire property off to any public use whatsoever so that they have a quiet little area. And that's, I mean, understandable. I mean, people want their, what they want. It's just, excuse me, and I see our task as trying to strike that balance and gain that kind of respectable use or the respectable use of that property. And I think it's often stated that somehow this would turn into some sort of big tourist park, and I think it's a little overstated in that sense. And none of the people that I've heard speaking in favor of keeping that land as public has wanted any designs on that property, anything more than just a really very low impact, just keeping it as much in its natural state as possible, maybe having an informational kiosk or so, like we do many of our trailheads in our areas that are very low impact as well. So I don't really see that as being as big of a huge tourist park as what it can be made out to be. So the issue is certainly complex. And that's all.
Thank you. Kelly, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I feel like we need to pull back in here a little bit as to what task are we trying to complete here? My understanding is our advisory committee is trying to come forward and make a recommendation. Some of these things, and I certainly don't mean to be argumentative, but I feel that I know Dave had issues last year and brought it forward to the county as to what was occurring there. I feel like some of the short-term solutions, especially where the committee that Stacy, Heidi, Tim, and I worked together a little bit, came forward identifying some things that might help with, we've talked about trash receptacles, we've talked about the one dog station. Do we want a porta potty there or not? I don't know how you draw lines for parking because it really isn't a very big area. So we've kind of come forward stating here's some things we see might help in controlling the area. But I feel like Dave's coming back and telling us, well, now you're going to designate it as a park. No, I felt like it was asked for assistance for the area because it's being mistreated, maybe overrun. So I kind of feel like we need to come back and figure out what it is we're doing here. And I certainly respect Dave's opinion as a homeowner there and someone who lives there, but I also think we need to move towards solutions, not saying, well, no, you shouldn't keep it public or a private person might work because, Dave, you mentioned to us, you've contacted Dwayne Hill yourself about purchasing that spot. Are we just talking about the county piece of land like Myron talks about right now? Are we talking about the MnDOT piece of land? I guess I'm getting a little confused as to what direction and what is the task at hand for us, because I feel it's a little bit argumentative and we certainly can have discussions here, but I don't want to lose sight of what our overall task is. And I feel like in 2 meetings, it's not really clear. And I don't know if I'm the only one that sees it or feels it, or if there's others. But I'd like to get back to what is the task at hand that we're charged with, and how do we go forward and make that recommendation? We're going to have different ways maybe to do that. That's okay. That's why more players bring more ideas. But I'd like to stay more on task, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Kelly. And yes, we have 2 tasks, one which comes from the concerns that were brought forward last summer when the area was mistreated or abused. We all know there was a lot of trash, there was human waste. It was not a pleasant experience for the public who was there or for those who are residing on Old Shore Road or are there as seasonal residents. So I think our first charge is to make sure that we put into place some short-term management. And I do believe that we can try with signage and some regulation to manage that area so that it is a good place for those that reside there. And also so that it is a respectful place for those that go to enjoy it and to look at the historical value and significance of that place. So that short-term piece that you described, Kelly, you're right on. The longer-term piece is clearly looking at that county property and trying to determine what we want to do with that. You know, and do we want to make any recommendations? We have a lot of discussion. This is the beginning of difficult discussion. It's challenging. We have lots of opinions that we all bring to the table. And of course, we have a lot of information that we need to gather from the public in making these decisions. But I do think, you know, we have a good start. We're being open, we're being respectful, and we're trying to solicit feedback from the public. First on the short-term piece so we can get help to those residents so that by the time Memorial Day comes around, we have a few things in place. Now, I know, Kelly, you're meeting with the city, is it this Wednesday? Maybe you want to talk a little bit for the group about what you intend to ask for at that meeting.
Sure. We meet this Wednesday and we will meet again on the 26th. So both meetings fall before Memorial Weekend. You know, I sent Ann a letter, quick note this morning by email, just stating, I'm not sure what I guess we kind of need to decide here really what the ask is. What we want to put in that area. Do we want to put garbage cans? Do we want to put a dog station? Do we want porta potties? And then deciding what things do we want to ask of the county that they would pay for? What asks do you want of the city? Because this is not city property. It's not within city jurisdiction. I have a feeling that the the 4 other counselors along with me would be willing to probably do some help, whether it's placing garbage cans, if we need to order a dog station. But I don't know to what degree they'll go. I think I've said before, I feel like I need to go back and say, here's the concrete things that the committee is asking of us as a city. So maybe identifying tonight something that I can go back and place before the council on Wednesday. You know, again, I'm not sure we're all on board, and maybe it's something that we have to vote on. You know, I know as we've talked, Dave has mentioned that if you're placing these things, it looks like a park. So I guess my question comes back to the people attending here tonight. What do we want to see there by Memorial Weekend, which obviously is a very short window. We're not going to be placing a lot of signs, routed signs, printed signs at that point in time. But what kind of things are we looking for? And what would you like me to ask of the city? Because I'm more than happy to do that.
So I know that previously, as you mentioned, you had a committee with Parks and Trails that looked at this. And in my discussion with Tim Nelson earlier, it was our thought that maybe going with that idea of a trash can and a dog waste piece would be the two things that right now we could identify as a start. Certainly, we don't have all of our feedback yet from the residents of Old Shore Road. We don't have our feedback yet from the broader community, but it's a place to start to help those residents so that they aren't overwhelmed and so that we can try to, again, manage that piece appropriately. I know Sheriff Eliason, in my discussion with him, said they would, continue to take any calls. They can kind of swing through there, that type of thing. So I appreciate the fact, and I think Mr. Homiak also mentioned that they have, he feels that they have addressed calls when he's made them. So I think that is a start. And Tim, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the county and what we might be able to do and what we might be able to ask of Cook County.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So there's a number of items that were listed on that survey. A lot of them to do individual items with signage. And as we indicated, we certainly would not have the time to get any signage by that point in time. I will say that of the 3 people that have responded, nobody's checked in favor of any porta pots, and that's been the only one not checked. So that was kind of interesting. But I did talk to Robbie, or the highway engineer, and he indicated that he doesn't see that he would be able to commit any highway department staff for the maintenance of a waste receptacle, any kind of trash can. So I have to have that discussion with our maintenance department, because actually our maintenance department is the one who goes out and services the county-owned boat landings and accesses. They are the ones that even go all the way up to the end of the trail and services that one. So that's kind of as far as we've gotten so far.
So Tim, I'll kind of put you on the spot then. Ann identified a garbage can and a waste station. Are you looking for the city to go place those items, to purchase them and put them there? Do you want us physically to do it? Or do you want us to leave them somewhere with the county? And are you asking us to then attend them and empty them? What would you like me to ask?
Well, I think, at this point, if we just kind of feel out what our capabilities are, then we can come back and discuss that a little bit more. So I don't know, and maybe you can just feel what the city is willing to do. And I can speak with Brian, our maintenance director, and see what we can do if you guys just maybe pitch in and get the dispenser for the pet waste bags. And if we get and place a waste can out there, maybe Brian can go out there and have his guys service it. So, I'm certain that we can come to some sort of cooperative arrangement. So maybe at this point, it's just feeling out what each entity is able to offer.
I will follow up with that Tuesday night and see what they have, and then it may, give them 2 weeks to us. I think that we can probably help. I would think there's a garbage can somewhere. We might not need as many this year since the mask mandate and the seating, indoor and outdoor seating is changing. We might have a garbage can available. The dog station, I'm not sure if we'd have to order if there's extra, but then I can kind of gauge what the employee time might be if they have anybody that would be available to help with that. And then we'll know something again by the 26th that we could talk about it further. And I can email you too.
Okay.
Dave, you had your hand up.
As the owner of a quasi-public trash receptacle in Lutzen, I can tell you that there's a large percentage of Cook County residents that are cost conscious and sensitive to the cost of disposing of a bag of trash. Literally, we had to lock our trash cans in Lutzen, and it's not just our businesses, but all of the businesses in Lutzen are locked these days. And so don't underestimate the amount of trash that any receptacle placed in a public location will receive. Not only do people empty their cars into them, but people empty their household trash into them. And I don't think it's unique to Cook County. but I'm especially sensitive to it given what I've seen at our business in Lutzen. So just be aware that.
Happens to the city trash cans all the time.
Yes.
In the Cook County, the recycling center, we have to deal with that too, quite a bit.
Absolutely. Stacy, you have your hand up.
Well, I was just going to bring up the precedence of the dog park and the maybe lobby for a tiny trash can instead of a really big trash can. Because I guess it indicates that, it's a shared space and it is monitored. And just a little reminder that people need to be responsible for their time there. It is a courtesy to, put in a dog station, and a dog station and a tiny trash can are just movable, very temporary things that would just help bridge the gap between Memorial Day and whatever happens after that. Because if you do put out a big trash can, someone is going to leave a tire there. You just know they are.
You don't want the decorative drums then that we had down here, Stacy?
No. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Tim, as a property owner, I'm kind of curious, how are you responding and reacting to this conversation?
Well, I did listen to the last Zoom meeting, and I know Margaret brought up a concern about just the water gathering in the parking area, and wondering if that's something that should be considered short-term, if possible. And then the other question I had, which relates to if the survey is done and we find out that the driveway into that parking lot isn't county property, is the county going to have to make an adjustment or maybe contact the landowner to say, can we continue to use this driveway into the parking lot? Those are two issues. And then from the standpoint of trash, I know we do gather trash when we go down to the beach. We'll pick it up and bring it back. So we would certainly try and continue to do that. I don't know if there's a place, we don't have trash pickup, so we bring it back with us most of the time. It would be nice if we're gathering trash and gathering a lot of it to have some place to take it to, not our trash, but trash from the beach area. But we certainly, I don't know, at one point you used to be able to buy bags and take it up to the waste area just down the road. I don't think they have that anymore, do they?
I believe they still do, but I will check on that. I will put that down as part of my homework to check with North Shore Waste and see how they might be able to partner with us and help us through this interim period.
Because we certainly, as homeowners, would be more than willing to buy bags and when we pick up things, take it back to North Shore Waste. And, I think a lot of it's just, if it looks trashy, people will throw their trash. If it's clean and you're the only piece of trash that you're throwing out there, it's a little more obvious and less likely that they might throw it out there. So I think the big piece is to kind of keep it as clean as possible so people respect that land more.
I would agree. Appreciate that. Thank you. Other comments or remarks about the trash? Dog waste receptacles. So we'll get working on some of that. One thing that is on our agenda that I would like to take time to address, because we've spent quite a bit of time this evening on the start of our long-term discussion, but I know that Dave, you brought up the cartway through the MnDOT parcel, and I'd just like for you to kind of educate the group regarding that and share your thoughts with us.
Sure. Historically, that was the old road. In Stacy's book, it's pretty well detailed, and it's considered part of Old Shore Road. When MnDOT took those properties over, the road was it continued to be used by residents to the east. There are four parcels that their only access to the outside world is via that cart path. Herb Hedstrom in, I believe it was 1989, somewhere in the 89 to 92 time period, drafted a formal request to the county to formally designate it as a cart path. And so they did that. The County Board of Commissioners issued a finding, I think it's called. In any case, it's platted, deeded, shared access. It's not a private road, as I learned last year the hard way. And it traverses the parcel that you're looking at long-term. So any purchaser of this property would have to recognize that deeded access across the property. It's currently used by us, the Homeyaks, Hedstroms, and the Carters to the east. There's a vacant parcel in the middle owned by the Langs. They don't have a house on the property, and they don't have a driveway. I sent a letter to the MnDOT lawyers confirming that that deeded cart path had been recorded on the state's title, because I was concerned about the transition of this property to the Grand Portage Band and the possibility that they wouldn't recognize the cart path. But the state's lawyers assured us, the property owners, 3 property owners, that the deed for the cart path access would continue to be recognized. So as the county evaluates whether to purchase this property or not, there's deeded access across it. That deeded access has drainage underneath it that's been maintained by the property owners. The cart path designation requires the property owners to maintain the road. The state and county provide no funds and no maintenance. And so we've had a driveway maintenance agreement in place for a number of years between the Carters, the Hedstroms, and the Homeyaks. That includes snow plowing, it includes fill and pothole repair. It also includes maintaining the culverts under that road, and there are 4 of them. So when the county evaluates its potential purchase of the property, they need to be aware of the easement. And I would expect that the 3 of us would ask the county to participate in that road maintenance agreement. The costs have probably averaged about $250 a year. I think the last significant maintenance, we raised the road 6 inches after the 2008 flood out, which destroyed the road. We filled and regraded it and installed additional culverts at that time. There is no maintenance scheduled for this year. It looks as though we'll probably have to grade and fill it. The cost is somewhere probably around $1,000 to grade and fill it. And the culverts are 80% full, the ones that route the water from the highway down through the drainage basin in the middle of the property. And Bausch gave us an estimate of $4,000 to pull those culverts and either empty them or replace them. So that's in a nutshell, that's the history of what Stacy calls the old road. We've maintained that portion of it since 1997.
We appreciate you sharing that information just so that everybody does understand that particular situation. And I did look in a file that I picked up at the courthouse, and that is exactly what happened. And it is filed. I have it right here. So
yep. The technical description, it's 17 feet from center line to the edge. So it's a 34-foot wide cart path, and it is public access. Anybody can walk on it. It presents some driving challenges. There's no place for anybody to turn around. And so last spring, I attempted to put up a sign that said, private drive, no turnaround. And I was rebuffed because it's not a private drive. So one of the things that'll be on the survey that we're sending back is that it would be nice if the county put a some sort of sign on that post saying that there's no turnaround. Because everybody that drives down there gets to Margaret Hedstrom's driveway and has to do a U-turn literally in her driveway on her asphalt. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Anything else regarding the cart path you want to add? Any comments by others? Well, I think that's kind of a natural place for us this evening to conclude. We've gotten a lot of information, and certainly when we meet next in 2 weeks, we're going to have a lot of survey information to sort through and hopefully some other emails and things. Tim, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's possible to do for the county to maybe put a counter on the road or the driveway into the parking lot to get an idea of the scope of vehicles going in there. You know, when I'm up there, I notice cars in there, never a large amount, but there are typically a couple of cars in the parking lot. So it'd be nice to just get a flavor or a feel for how many cars are we actually talking about that currently use that parking lot. You know, it would help. We don't have any historical perspective, but I think, you know, if this is going to be a busy summer, and I don't know how long they'd be able to measure that, but are we talking, you know, 10 cars a day, 200 cars, or is it, you know, 3 or 4 cars a day that go into that parking lot? So
I will check into that with our county engineer, and hopefully we will be able to do that, or at least find out some information. Dave.
On the county GIS site, it's a great reference because the lines are very accurately drawn. The church parcel does have direct access to the Old Shore Road cart path. There isn't presently a path, and it's a pretty steep hill down through the trees. But there, when you talk about a connection from the church to any of these properties, you can walk from the church on that road over to these parcels on present day public property.
Stacy.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah. Also, the county does own, I believe, both sides of the current gravel road, which would be a lot easier for people to walk on if they wanted to walk from the church down to the beach. And I believe it's 15 feet on either side of the road or something like that.
Any other remarks, suggestions, anything before we conclude this evening? Well, I want to thank you all for really thoughtful conversation and bringing up good questions and pushing us all to do our best thinking together as we examine these short-term and long-term issues. And I'm looking forward to meeting with everybody 2 weeks from tonight. We'll get minutes out, and Kelly, you and Tim and I will be in communication about your city meeting and what goes on there, and I'll make certain to do my homework with the county as well. Anything else this evening before we conclude? Dave.
Sorry, is there a reason the Grand Portage Band isn't represented tonight?
I am uncertain.
Okay.
I am uncertain. I do know that I was contacted by Maria Burnett, who indicated she had appointments in Duluth today and would be getting back late. So I don't know if they were all together or not.
Okay.
But I will
Thanks.
follow up. Thank you. All right. Well, I appreciate again all your good thinking and sharing and honesty, and look forward to seeing everybody in 2 weeks, and have a very good evening, and keep the good work going.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. Good night.